Your Town Matters is funded by the Government of Canada through the Local Journalism Initiative and supported by Cactus Media, Canada's independent community television association.
I'm Vicki Hogarth and welcome to Your Town Matters. On today's show, we'll be hearing from MP John Williamson of New Brunswick Southwest about a new petition regarding a year-round ferry for Campobello Island that will be heading to the House of Commons this September. But first, CertainTeed Canada will close its gypsum wallboard plant in McAdam by the end of February 2021, with the vast majority of the 59 employees losing their jobs by the end of August. I recently sat down with Mayor Ken Stannix in McAdam to hear how the village is reacting to the loss of its largest employer.
I heard about the news that the CertainTeed mill was closing last Thursday morning. It was probably about 9 o'clock that I first started hearing the rumors from folks that worked out there. So I immediately called around a couple of other people, got a hold of the council members, told them I'd like to have a meeting with them at 11 o'clock. So we had our first council meeting at 11. During that interim period, I had put a call into the plant manager and Bob Bowman to have a chat with him to see what was going on out there. And so we got into the meeting. Some of the other councillors had heard from folks as well, and so that was kind of corroboration that something was happening out at the mill that was probably not going to bode too well. And then Bob Bowman, he gave us a call probably around 11:15 or so, and confirmed what was going on. So what we discovered was that the mill in fact was closing. It would be a permanent closure. And it was being permanently closed due to market conditions. Demand had dropped to about 25% of their capacity, and at that level the mill just couldn't pay for itself and keep producing. So the other detail that we learned was that production would cease on the 29th of August, and that at that point the product that is still there, the inventory, would be sold and shipped off, and the folks that would look after that, there'd be another 7 or 10 that would keep their jobs in order to do that function until around the end of February 2021.
Overall, Ken, how many people are affected by this closure? How many direct jobs and indirect jobs are affected by this? Yeah,
that was probably the hardest thing to kind of deal with. When I first heard the news, of course, my heart sunk right down into the pit of my stomach. And it's about the people. There's 59 folks there that will be losing their jobs over this period. And a lot of those people probably had, let me back up a little bit. There's a group that had 27 plus years. There's a middle group that had quite a few years in. And then there's a younger group that didn't have more than 2 or 3 years there. So there's a spectrum of folks that were going to be losing their jobs. Certainly I couldn't imagine what it would be like for one of those guys that had been working there so many years to go home and tell their families that their jobs were now done as of the end of August, and what are they going to do? So that was the first reaction was how do we look after these 59 folks? There's also, that doesn't get covered very much, there's another 15 folks, contractors that work with the mill, maintaining equipment, tarping the truckloads as they leave, trucking, covering the product loads as they leave, transportation, and other things like that. So what do we do for those folks? We know that they're going to be downsizing as well. So it's going to be that hit to the personnel, to the people, their families. How is that going to translate into the village? One of the first things I wanted to look at we took stock of how many children are in those families that are going to be adversely affected. And we calculated about 20 children. Our school population here is probably about 160 in our elementary school and in our high school. So if you start looking at the potential of 20 children leaving, how does that impact the school system? The other thing that we did, we immediately started calling local businesses. What percentage, well, if I step back one, we asked them, how is this going to impact you? And certainly they were in shock as well. But they would have to go back through their inventories, determine how much was being sold to CertainTeed over the last year, over the last few months, and then try and adjust their sales and their inventory levels for that. So yeah, that's when we first heard about it, it's the people right off the bat that you're concerned about. What do we do for them? And then the second thing is businesses, the community, and then you think, okay, who do I reach out to get help with this? Because we have a lot of scope within the municipality, but we don't have that much scope. We needed to go back out. So we immediately got a hold of Kathy Baucus and the Conservative Party in the village, or in the province. And certainly within 24 hours we had Minister Holder was here with his staff. Andrea Anderson Mason was here with her staff. We had staff from Opportunities New Brunswick. And again, when they came here Friday morning, we met at 9 o'clock on Friday morning, and then we met with Bob Bowman at 10 o'clock that Friday afternoon to talk about personnel and again, just to go over why the closure was taking place. During that immediate initial discussion, it's all about the people. What kind of services can we provide them? Can we get them knowledgeable folks to come in and talk to them about EI, talk to them about how to invest their severance packages, how to plan for the future, how do they find new jobs. Some of these folks have never written a resume for the last 27, 30 years. So how do you get ready to do that? How do you deal with the accounting that's going to be associated with that? So we have a number of experts that will be coming in this Friday, and we will be going through all that information with those employees that wish to come and participate in that. So we'll have an information session. That'll be the first step. We have a couple of weeks. And so I suspect after we get the information to them, then we'll sit down and talk about potentially a job fair down the road. I've already had calls from other companies from around the surrounding area, Fredericton and St. Stephen primarily, looking for new employees that they might find from this group that are losing their jobs. So that was quite hopeful news that I got.
Is there any hope for repurposing the plant to keep a major employer here?
Right. So yes, good question. We're going to be talking to Opportunities New Brunswick this Friday as well, and we'll have a team together to talk about what does the building consist of. They were quite surprised to find that we had modern infrastructure out there in terms of gas-fired electrical generation, operation processes, those types of things. It's a large building that's been well maintained. It has a rail spur that's going up into the plant. So it has a lot of things that another manufacturing or another company would be looking for if they were going to be developing a product or have a warehouse system placed there. So yeah, we think we're well positioned to find a follow-on company to come in and place themselves there. Certainly the first option is to talk to CertainTeed. We had a quick chat with them about what the future might hold. At this point, it's not looking like there's too much that they would be interested in doing there. But the facility is there. It's sitting on 8.8 acres, and it's, I think, would be attractive to some other companies.
For people who are watching this from outside southwest New Brunswick, can you explain the importance of a plant like that in the community in terms of its space within the population? How big of an enterprise is this for the community?
Yeah, it's probably, it is the biggest employer from a manufacturing perspective, and so therefore it's going to have a ripple effect throughout the economy here, I suspect. As we move forward in this, the majority of folks, I suspect, will hang on and stay in the area. Those other jobs that come from other, like Fredericton and St. Stephen, I think will hold people here. We have a fair number of people that live here and travel to Fredericton for employment already. Economically, that's quite viable. We had a family just recently come into the New Brunswick area. They had a job in Fredericton, and they moved to Nakawik, and they said 45 minutes on the road, no traffic. When they were living in Toronto, it's 2 hours each way, bumper to bumper. So the lifestyle is conducive, and the distance is conducive to many people from other areas coming here to live and then work in other locations. So for the folks that have lost their jobs here, to move, pay a mortgage at another location when it would probably be more economically viable to keep their house here and travel to another location for work within an hour's radius would probably be very doable.
Speaking of people who travel for work, this plant also employed people who live in the Fredericton area and the St. Stephen area. Can you speak of its impact to the region as a whole?
Yes, out of those 60 people, when we sat down and looked at how many actually live here and live outside the community, roughly 2/3 of the workforce there live in the community, and 1/3 lives outside. So they travel from Fredericton to McAdam. They traveled from St. Stephen, and they traveled from Harvey to come in here and work. So it's really not just a McAdam story, it's a Southwest New Brunswick story from that perspective. Yeah.
McAdam has a history kind of reinventing itself in the face of adversity. Can you talk a little bit about that, from the railroad to where we're at now with CertainTeed?
Yeah, there's quite a history here. We had the railroad was the initial major employer. Certainly there was logging before that, but the railroad came in. It had probably 700 plus employees that worked full-time at the station, and that went on for decades. And then that started petering out in the 60s after the diesel engines came online. So they didn't need to do the maintenance, they didn't need to do the watering, the coal for the old steam-fired engines when they went to the diesels. So that led to the demise of the railway here in McAdam. Once that occurred, we went out, the village went out and started looking for other people, major employers, to come into the community. One of those was and for the life of me, I can't remember the name of the company. I think it was Georgia Pacific that ran the plywood mill in the location that the wallboard plant is there right now. And I remember working there as a young man in the plywood plant, and that had, I want to say, about 400 full-time employees there. So, and then another 600 people who were working in the woods, gathering in the wood that was being used there. So it was a major employer, and it closed, I want to say, in the 80s. But don't hold me to that. I'm pretty sure it was the early 80s, because I was working there in around 77, 78, so it closed shortly thereafter. So that was a major hit to the community, and so they then started searching for a new operator to come in and take over the property, and that's when the wallboard plant was found and came in. Now that wallboard plant was owned by a couple of different companies before CertainTeed came in and took it over. But it started employing, and at the maximum number, it was around 80 people that were employed out there. So we took a major hit when the railway left, 700, 800 jobs, and then over a period of time, the old plywood mill, when it left a big hole in the community as well. And that's when CertainTeed, or the wallboard, came in. And so that each time it seemed to be a smaller number of people that were being employed at the plant. Whereas outside that bubble, employment growth was occurring. So we had the manor. We have over 70 people employed at the manor. We have Salino pipe plant that came in. They employ about 24 to 30 people there, and they are expanding, albeit a small little bit this summer, but it's another 2 or 3 jobs that were coming in. There was a number of other little companies like the McKays. They employ 30, 35 people full-time, 25 maybe full-time, 35, 40 if you can consider the part-time folks. So even though the mill is closing, there has been this cluster of other businesses that have opened in around and caused this diversification to occur. I hope that we will have another company that will come in and replace the mill, and that will come in and hire those 60, 80 people that will need reemployment. That would be best case scenario. On the other hand, the community had already started going down this diversification path through tourism. So we had upgraded our campground from 21 to 40 seasonal lots, and that will increase again next year. We're going to increase it up to 49, which was the original plan. COVID-19 delayed those plans this year, but it will go ahead next year. And that will bring an additional 50 people into the community that will be shopping and buying product at the local stores. The dollar lots, that's going to bring in another 16 families, and those 16 families will contribute to the community as well through supporting local businesses, restaurants, and the schools and the bank and all those types of things. On top of that, we are in the process of bringing in some small shops that will be doing artisan type manufacturing here, and so we're hoping that will bring in additional people to keep things rolling here. So we do have a plan for the future, and in saying that, we will also be meeting on Friday with Opportunities New Brunswick. What we will be doing there is we will be defining what the layout of the plant is, what are the capabilities of the plant. Like I said before, 8.8 acres it's sitting on. It has a rail spur coming in. So it has a lot of functions that other companies or industries might find appealing. So we will be working through them, and not only through them, but on our own, trying to find other companies that might come in and do that. I believe in a multi-pronged approach on these types of things. I don't want to be reliant. I need the help, but I don't want to be reliant. So now, if they have help with that, we can get them off on the right foot and see how that all melds together for them. We will be setting up a job fair within the next couple of weeks here and inviting other employers to come in and see if these folks have a skill set that would be available or useful to them. One of the things I find here, and I spoke to Bob Bowman about this, the plant manager, he says the workforce here is excellent. And what he loved about the workforce is that it's multi-talented. A fellow that works on a machine over the years has learned how to fix that machine so that they don't have to call in people from Fredericton or St. Stephen to do maintenance, to do corrective actions, to those types of things that you'd have to do with machinery and processes. They've been there long enough that they knew how to do that. And so when they do that over a number of years, they learn these new skill sets, primarily independence, because now you know your machinery, you know how to fix it, how to maintain it. So those kinds of things work in their favor. So when they go out to the job market looking for new jobs, they will have skill sets that will be highly prized by a lot of new employers.
Last time we spoke, Ken, you told me about some challenges you were having with water system in McAdam. How is that coming along? We are expanding the population to the point where we needed to upgrade our water.
And that information came through. The government had approved us about 3 weeks ago for our water project to bring in 2 new water wells, which will take us from 80,000 gallons a day to about 155,000 gallons a day. So that will allow us to further the population expansion here. And that will also be something that a new industry would be happy to hear when they come into the community, that there's going to be lots of water. So it's important. It was a good step forward in the expansion of the village. What we've been doing is we've been telling folks that there are other houses that are for sale here, to look at that area. We've had more houses selling over the last couple of weeks here. We have a developer here now that's in modernizing older homes and then turning around and selling those, and I know he's had some luck with those. So things are still looking up on the future. It's just right now we're faced with this horrendous situation where the mill has closed and the 59 folks that will be losing their jobs. So we'll look after those guys. We'll make sure that we can get as many services as we can to them and try and get them moving forward again. And then we'll refocus on what's happening in the village.
That was Mayor Ken Stannix of the Village of McAdam. Next, a petition signed by over 900 people for a year-round ferry to link Campobello Island to the mainland will be brought to the House of Commons this September. Campobello currently relies on a bridge to Lubec, Maine to access the mainland when the seasonal ferry is out of service. This has become problematic during the COVID-19 pandemic, with tightened international borders showing no signs of loosening anytime soon. I sat down with MP John Williamson of New Brunswick Southwest near the wharf in St. Andrews to find out why this petition is an important next step in securing a year-round ferry. Can we start off by talking about the petition for the Campobello Island year-round ferry? For people who don't know, what is the petition and what's happening?
So about a month ago, a group on Campobello launched a petition through the House of Commons, or through Parliament. It's on their webpage. I was asked to sponsor it, and I was happy to do that. And what the petition is about, it's to ask the federal government to look at and consider supporting a year-round ferry to and from Campobello Island. So it had a lot of interest, as we know. I find around the province, it's not just islanders anymore that are talking about the ferry, but people just think it's a question of fairness and equity for this community, this island community, to be able to get to and from Campobello by going to New Brunswick and not having to travel through the United States, which even with COVID they can do, but people would rather be able to access Canada directly. So the petition's all about that. And last week we were able to secure the number of petitioners we needed to have it first sanctioned by Parliament, which now means it's an authorized petition. You need 500 signatures minimum. And what this means is that it allows me to table this petition in Parliament in September when we go back. And this will prompt a reply from the federal government on the petition, which is why it's important. It's not just petition for the sake of tabling it in Parliament, which that's important as well, but it should prompt a response from the federal government, which I think is important, just to get a better sense of what they're thinking and where they're going to go with this important initiative.
Last time we spoke, we talked about how the year-round ferry could be a partnership between the provincial and the federal government. Have you heard from the province and Minister Bill Oliver's office about what's happening on their end?
Just that it's ongoing. What the provincial government is doing is putting together a full plan, from nuts to bolts, scheduling, budgeting, all of that, and what it will take. And that's obviously a lengthy process, because they have to determine the start point, stop point. They have to decide the routes. They have to decide what kind of ferry boat will be used, things like that. And so, the province has numerous public servants that they do this. The province runs ferries all over the province, so they're the right people to do that, and it's ongoing. But I'm told as well, I did learn some news this week, that they are actually already in discussions with the federal government, just to be sure that Ottawa is up to speed on this project.
Finally, what do you think the next steps will be going forward?
Well, I do think that the first kind of real tangible step is going to be the plan. Now that we have both levels of government that have indicated their willingness to work together, Premier Blaine Higgs said he was open to it with help from the federal government. And last year, in some questioning about the U.S. mail dispute, or pardon me, Canada Post mail dispute running through the U.S. that was being searched, the federal government, in some questioning for me in Parliament, indicated for the very first time they would be open to a partnership as well. So all the arrows are pointing in the right direction now. But as I say, Ottawa funds plans, doesn't fund ideas. So we need a plan now. And once we have that plan, we'll begin to promote it, and that will be the next big step, I think.
Thank you so much for joining me today, John. I know you're off to Campobello right now to enjoy some time on the island with Kelly and baby Charlotte.
Kelly and I are heading over for the night. Actually, we're going to take both ferries to get to Campobello and then see some people over there just to follow up and make sure I'm listening all across the riding. So thank you.
That was MP John Williamson of New Brunswick Southwest. Once again, I'm Vicki Hogarth. Thank you for joining me today. We'll see you next time on Your Town Matters.